Hi, we are here with,
King Jeff.
and King Jeff's going to review what?
Actually, I'm going to review on the Green Lantern titles for 52 weeks.
Because our resident Green Lantern fan became a brony.
What exactly is a brony?
It's kind of like the little girl's version of the Green Lantern's Corps.
Oh, so he's a fair weather fan, I take it.
He's a fairy weather fan.
Oh, a fairy weather fan. Well,
Remember,
anyway.
it's a little girl's cartoon.
Well, anyway, be as it may. Actually, I've enjoyed going through the list here. You know, the first one being the rebooting with Green Lantern, basically putting Sinestro in charge of being the Green Lantern for Sector 2-1.
For basically the butterfly effect from Flashpoint,
Yeah.
where he was the first to have the major changes.
Actually, he was a better choice. Still look upon it as he has more intelligence, he has more experience. Whereas Hal, for the most part, never really grew into this role. It was kind of thrust on him. He was born to it.
As where Hal has stayed that one-dimensional character in the Green Lantern series, Sinestro over the last 5 to 10 years has become a very interesting and character with depth.
Well, I would say he has. But also, too, in a lot of ways, he just simply came on with the idea that there's more to it than just that. You have to look at it in a multi-tiered way. Pretty much the same way that he went out of his way to give an example to Jordan of how you repair a bridge. Not just saving the damsel in distress, but taking care of everything and all at once. In other words, he shows you, yeah, you can multitask with these things and do it right. The first thing here is, as you go along, now this, for long-time readers of Green Lantern will see that this is a demotion for Jordan. You know, he's been basically earthbound, he's lost his apartment, his job, his girlfriend. So basically he doesn't know what else to do in his life. So the job pretty much is thrown on him as just saying, hey, you're this guy's sidekick from here on out. And he can do with you whatever the hell he wants. But what he's still doing is I may not like you, Jordan, but I'm going to train you. I'm going to train you the way you should have been until you became a putz.
He's not the hero that people once expected.
He's a lovable asshole.
Who? Sinestro or
Actually,
Jordan?
both. But Sinestro gets more of a giggle out of it because, in a sense, he's enjoying himself as he's going along. Because he says, okay, all the bad stuff that, you know, that I put up with you, you know, no hard feelings here, but I'm going to come back and I'm going to say, hey, now I'm starting over from square one too, but I'm going to do this right. This is the way the Corps should be run, not just bringing in, you know, what I consider lower life forms and training them, you know, like a monkey. In other words, he still looks at him and says, you're just a shaved ape to me, basically. Now, when you put in about another 100 years of training, you might be worthy of something.
Something that was never explored in the original training of Sinestro and Hal Jordan.
It's just simply, he just looks at him as this rookie and novice, and he's hardly even worthy of the accolades that he's supposed to have garnished over all these years.
And you kind of wonder, how did he do it, especially with the series
Dumb
Justice
luck.
League?
Dumb luck.
Well, look at Justice League.
Oh, that's a good example. Now, this is the moment where we really see that, you know, he's basically a putz because he gets his ring taken away from him by Batman. You know, and so that's kind of sad.
Talk about the issue 1 where he gets his butt kicked in
yeah,
one page by
twice.
Superman.
Twice he gets his butt kicked, you know. And what does that say to him? He doesn't think well on his feet.
Especially when his good friend from the original Underwear universe of the DC comes in, the Flash says, dude, you're an asshole.
Yeah. He knows him from, apparently from back when. And he says, you know, why in the world did they call you? You know, you're not all that good. And you work with me, and I can evaluate you, you know, say basically, you can't do the job.
And a human can. Huh?
Oh, well, I guess from...
You know, from Batman. Remember Batman? They're always
True.
pointing out, you're just a human?
Yeah, just, you know,
You have
no
no
special
power?
powers, no nothing. I says, what are you doing here? Well, what are you? I'm a human. Yeah, just a ring. Yank.
Yeah.
And the end.
So let's move to the next series.
Well, okay, so sign in, sign out.
Well,
So we
continue.
go to the next flip. And the next one, actually, I've had a lot more fun with this one, has been with Green Lantern, The New Guardians. This is kind of like taking the idea that everybody has to have a representative.
Especially since New Guardians was a 90s series with all the characters of Earth combination colors.
I think
You
it
had
starts right.
Jack-o'-lantern.
I think it all starts right because it's starting, basically 52 weeks is just starting from square one.
Yeah.
In other words, from the get-go, when they do this, Guardians are basically flat on their ass, and you say, who cares? They deserve to be there anyhow. But the real story was to see how Kyle is going to handle this, because basically now he becomes the unofficial leader of all this.
So how did he become the unofficial leader of all
I
this?
guess in a sense is that he just simply, the rings all chose him for some dumb reason. And we're saying, why? Why? Because he can access the Mosaic universe? Is it possible?
Could he do it in issue 1 or in issue 4?
Apparently by about issue 3, but the problem was with it, when he did, it had an adverse effect. One is quite angry and quite psychotic, The only problem is this thing has a tendency to chew you up pretty darn fast. So the Guardians never recommended that this is a lifetime career. Basically, when they say don't do it, they mean it for a good reason.
And there's where he's burning out.
Yeah, and it's just sort of like, get it done, get the job, go on.
So it's like Saiyan mode for Green Lanterns.
Yeah.
Because if you notice, his hair stood up like
oh yeah,
Goku's.
yeah.
He's got that whole Saiyan look going on when he gets
it's kind of
gets
like
all
that,
the power.
Dragon Ball effect.
Yeah. So who are the characters in it?
Well, you know what? They really don't say anything more about the background on any of these, other than Saint Walker.
And we know Saint Walker.
Know.
We know Saint Walker from the original thing. We know Rainer. We know the little ball guy.
Yeah, it's a construct. He's basically just one of these little accoutrements that Larfleeze, the Orange Lantern has and uses, which is actually kind of fun.
And then we have Fatality, you said.
Yeah, and it simply is that the rings took from other ring bearers. In other words, they may have been out in space, and all of a sudden something went yoink. It says, sorry, we're leaving. It says, well, you're deceased now. Okay, we'll get a replacement somewhere down the line. But the point was, where do you go? What do you do with it?
So what's the next Green Lantern series you got there to show?
I'm thinking the next one to go into is actually the Green Lantern Corps, which for those of us who've had to kind of get the gist of the other ones before, this is actually a good start because it's just basically getting all the guys together and showing that basically you're not the top dog around here anymore. There's things out here that are hunting you, basically. Hunting the rings, actually, for what they're trying to change their fortune. The hardest part here is that now they're going up against, an adversary, and it's a multitude of adversary that has a willpower that is equal, if not surpassing their own, to take control
who
of
is
the
the
rings
adversary?
themselves. It never really says who it is yet.
You think it's the Guardians?
It doesn't appear to be a rogue guardian or anything. In a lot of ways, you wonder if it might be a version of like the Manhunters that kind of build off from this. We'll tune in as we go along. The hard part about it is you have to accept now they're giving Guy Garner front and center stage.
But Guy Garner's got front and center stage when the Green Lantern Corps was reactivated back 30, 40 issues.
I think they give him an ethic here instead of just being just the fool.
No, he had ethics in the series before this too, because he was the flagship character, and then they brought Rainer back, and then him and Rainer shared the title together.
Well, it's also too for the same aspect of it is, do you really need 4 lanterns for a sector?
No,
not really. It says so take a day off, go do something else.
Because remember, DC was planning to kill one of them.
That would be actually a step in the right direction for, get it back to where it streamlines. In a sense, this may be the reason why they've chosen Sinestro is that they're going to get rid of one of them.
Or they decided to give each one their own titles. And as long as they keep holding...
do you really feel... Because just John Stewart isn't really particularly a strong character.
But Stewart could carry the Green Lantern Corps series, and Garner can easily go over to Red Lantern. Let's see the Red Lantern series.
Red Lantern is a good question here because I think it's out of out of context and out of the time frame from either of these particular series. Because here with the Red Lantern, they're not tied to the destiny that is facing these other.
So you
titles.
got the regular and the alternate cover.
Yes, and this is also fun. Is when you do this, I'm not one for getting like multiple copies, but still, you still err on the side of caution that you say, this is still interesting to have, and you never know. The fun part was I had this character, which is Bleeze, becomes basically Atrocitus, the headman's second in command. And the thing is now you're kind of doing this interplay. Is she as dumb as she appears originally, or was she manipulating this all this time before she was raised back up to sentience? See, there's a problem with this. One, you relive how you died, because you have to die to become a Red Lantern.
And you have to have an angry death.
And an angry and a vicious death. See, Atrocitus, he definitely has his anger, so does his cat. But we understand why.
Dextars.
And they give you the reason, the manipulation of characters, and why
most of them were killed by Hal Jordan.
Understand why is rage so powerful, because it's an all-encompassing emotion.
The problem is with the New 52, Hal Jordan in the old universe killed most of these characters. Now they rewrote it, and we haven't known what killed them.
That's it. This is what killed the dinosaurs. That's the same attitude.
Wasn't the Hal Jordan age?
Might have been. The whole point of it is who goes hunting who. Does the status quo stay the same, or is there a new dynamic in these universe? So the New 52 is asking a lot of questions. We'd like to see where it's really going.
So what is your favorite series out of these five titles of the New 52?
Out of what I've been through has been actually Red Lantern. The surprise here is because here they're willing to take a lot of ideas and just turn them right on their head. Because one, we're dealing with a non sentient will. Basically it's rage for rage's sake. So it's a very complex issue to get through. Am I standing alone, or do I need others? Basically, am I making the right decisions as a commander? Which is actually a commander's dilemma in any kind of action.
So which, out of all the characters, other than the Red Lanterns, which of the original Green Lanterns do you think is the best one brought into the New 52? Because remember, we have
honest truth,
Jordan, Stewart, Gardner, and Rayner.
I would say for Gardner, because not only his experience, but I'm not going to say he's mellowing, but I'm saying he's more measured in his response. He still cowboys it, but he says, but there's a line I will draw.
They took his jackass and made a cowboy.
Right, but he understands that there's still the cause and effect. The Marine is still there. He is still willing to do what's necessary.
Do you think that's why they
right.
put Stewart in there? Because Stewart's also a Marine.
Yeah. And it's a question is, can you have two Marines, and basically it's a buddy picture. I'm going to go back to save my buddy.
Well, that's what Rayner and Gardner had before the last series was canceled.
But the question is this dynamic going to work, or are they just going to run it into an end where one of them has to go? So
like
that
they did with
there's
the
a
other
poetic
series.
justice to it all.
Like with the last Green Lantern Corps series.
And it's just, we have to have the death or the idea of the death to sell this issue. To make you ask yourself, what do you like? Where do you want to go with this? I, for one, I'm looking at it as I'm waiting for every issue to come out. I'm actually a fan of all these series now. Whereas before, you could come in and you never care. You never really get too involved with it. The whole point of it here is that what you did, you enjoyed. And I'm saying for any viewer who hasn't experienced these, go out and take a gander, take a look. It don't cost you nothing just to open up a book and look at it. I'm saying you're going to be pleasantly surprised by all this.
Thank you.